What happens when crushed stone comes face to face with natural gravel? Well, the simple answer is you got problems. In this video, has the industry got gravel wrong? And could Gravel Mountain be where the future lies? Roadies are in one massive skid about gravel. In fact, some of the road media are suggesting gravel to be a con. Now, one respected road media source has said that gravel is a mis-selling scandal, suggesting that the marketing around gravel bikes is a false representation of how people actually use gravel bikes. It's also slightly crazy because everybody knows, including my mates on eMBN, they even made a video about it, that a gravel bike is way faster than a mountain bike on gravel. Let's begin our story then with some gravel or some crushed stone. Now, if you mix this with bitumen, you've actually got tarmac. It's pretty much a byproduct of crude oil and quarrying on a monumental scale. Now, gravel itself comes in a range of sizes from say 3mm up to 90mm. And it's the kind of surface you'll find on fire roads and trail centres worldwide. This, on the other hand, is gravel in its purest form. It's the pebble-like material that you'll find on riverbanks, on streams and rivers all over the world. Now, this is my first point, is that frequently gravel takes place on commercially produced crushed stone and not gravel itself. So this is something we'll return to a little bit later. I've been reacquainted with a gravel bike. In this case, the Canyon Grizzle. And you know what? I absolutely love it. I love the simplicity. I love the speed and the fact that on a bike like this, you can simply get off the beaten track onto roads like this. Mountain bike blue trail to my right. Still got crushed stone, but I know that in a second the trail is gonna peter out and turn into a natural gravel trail. So here you go. What happens next? Oh wow, it's actually pretty cool, but I can still feel the back tyre slipping. I'm getting bounced, and I think it's because the steepness and I'll probably just end up pushing because that is quite a coarse, that's quite a coarse surface I've got to deal with here. I mean, this is a bike which is meant for the crushed tracks. As I'm walking up here, I'm thinking, this is actually proper e-gravel territory. But what about if I put low profile tyres on my Neuron OnFly? Just going to quickly talk through what I've done to my beautiful Neuron OnFly. I've simply put low profile cross country tyres on it. It's 150mm travel, it's got Bosch SX motor, 600 watts peak power. This is a bike that can actually conquer World Cup enduro tracks. It is an immensely capable bike. I've actually transformed it for this video into something which I believe is probably more of a cross-country gravel bike. And that's the great thing about this bike. It can be so many things, right? Okay, so you might be asking, why on earth have I got 2.25 sort of low-profile cross-country tyres on a 150mm travel bike? Well, the reason for that is when you ride trails such as this, brand new surfaced, oh, so cool. Because there's such a low resistance, you can maintain your speed better. You can also get above 25 kph, which is less easy to do with sticky tyres. So, about to transition from this crushed stone road into that natural gravel, which we rode earlier. When I put it in the right gear. Now, as you can see, even for a low torque eMTB, this is like on another level. You could argue this is extreme gravel riding. Now, the point here is low profile hard compound tyres, even on extreme gravel, actually works. back to my GMBN mates who think gravel is faster than MTB, and my mates on GCN who think that suspension, yes, you heard it, suspension is where the future lies. In fact, they pondered this on their weekly show.
What we've been thinking about, though, is whether or not now is the time for suspension on gravel bikes to actually catch on.
Yes, we think it is. These are the reasons why you will inevitably end up with one too.
Yeah, we've done a list, haven't we?
They go on to say that maybe suspension is also the way ahead for gravel bikes because, well, 5 reasons. First of all, you might want to keep exploring, whereby the gravel bike becomes less and less suitable. Secondly, bumps hurt. Third, suspension is more comfortable and the weight ain't a problem. Fourth, it's time to sell suspension to roadies. And fifth, industry is going to try and sell them to you. No, I'm not going to try and sell you a full suspension gravel bike. And the reason for that is that I fully believe that full suspension gravel has existed for decades, and that the real scandal here is not a gravel one, but a mountain bike phenomena. Welcome to one of the most busiest trails in the UK, mountain bike centre or gravel paradise. Okay, so we're into a blue trail on a gravel bike. I think there's, wow, so much fun. I think there's something, whoa! I think there's something great about riding a bike which is clearly not built for this kind of riding. And yet, you know what? At the same time, this is gravel. So when people say that gravel bikes are faster than mountain bikes, obviously it depends on the gravel trail that you're riding. We've got whooping gravel. We've got swooping gravel. Whoa, beautiful corner gravel. Bit of fine grit gravel coming up. So basically gravel seems to be everywhere in mountain biking, and like, is gravel actually more of a mountain bike thing than a drop handlebar thing? To be honest, this Canyon Grizzle is handling these trails pretty well. The gravel gets rough when you've got these braking bumps. As you can see, I'm avoiding the braking bumps. You go into these fast, swoopy things. And to be honest, a cross-country gravel bike, has no right to be in a place like this. And yet, because of the gravel and the surfacing and the chopped up stone, this is actually great fun. There's an e-biker apologising as the gravel rider comes down the trail. So here's the thing, whilst the commercially stoned fire roads are every bit the gravel dream that's being sold, and I love it a lot, when you get to the more natural material on places such as this is where a bike like this really does become unstuck. For me at least, because A, I'm not an athlete, and B, because it's a rigid rear end, which is fantastic on the flatter stuff, you simply bounce and lose traction. Whereas on the Neuron OnFly, even though it's a low torque bike, is on another planet because you've got suspension, which gives you grip, and also you've got momentum and speed, which helps you get through places like this. Roadies believe gravel to be their little dirty distraction. After all, gravel is just a finely tuned zero tar option for engineered roads. For the brands, it's just a great excuse to be able to sell exactly the same bikes with more rubber and a bit of bar flair. Breeds within breeds. But roadies don't own gravel, and after all, like I mentioned earlier, gravel is a riverbed material compared to commercially crushed chippings. Riverbeds, after all, is the kind of riding we do on eMBN. So point 2, are we natural gravel riders on gravel bikes? Even the mountains near here are gravelled. Actually, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's face it, gravel, and we'll include chippings in that, is actually, I believe, more a mountain bike thing than a gravel thing. I mean, look, it's a fact on the ground. At a mountain bike trail centre, you've got single track, berms, jumps, pump tracks, and this place is no place for gravel bikes in this new this existing gravel world. So I'm now going to take you through a range of trails at my local trail centre to see the depth of gravel that we've actually got here. With the skills area. It is gravel. It's all gravel. You know, we're teaching our children to be gravel riders and not mountain bikers. Time now to go to all trails. More gravel. Gravel trails leading to gravel trails are all done on gravel. What next? Coming to a junction of trails. Here we have push-up for mountain bikers, and then you got blue, red, and green trails. So let's go and get a taste of this first trail. Very much gravel. This is quite coarse gravel, so if you're on a rigid bike, it'll be bounced around, so that's what makes a full suspension bike much better. The famous verderers. It's blue, so you'd expect to have some gravel for newcomers, and that's a great thing. Quarrying on a monumental scale to make this surface and also to maintain the surface. Having said that, it is such a cool trail to ride. The flow is so good on it. And the thing with the trail centre is, the great thing is that there's a certainty that you will be able to ride this trail any weather. Whereas you go to a more unknown trail, unauthorised trail, likely to be off camber, wet, slidey, rooty, muddy. What I say next is quite important, because whilst trail centres get surfaced, when water gets onto the surface and washes away the fine material, they become quite rough, which is why I think an e-mountain bike, even with skinny tyres, is so much better, because it absorbs the big holes in between. It's still a workout. What have we got here? This is nice. No gravel here. But then again, you probably can't put gravel on a 45-degree slope, right? Because it'll just wash away. So I have found some mud. Right, let's take a break for just a minute. Now, according to some studies internationally, about 50% of riders think that an eMTB should be good at gravel riding. So I took a look at my local trail map. Now, here's a heat map showing the gravel trails near me. And here's one showing MTB trails. There's a huge overlap between the two. But when you go to more core MTB areas, that ain't no place for gravel, it seems. So where are we at with gravel? Well, I think it's true to say that the US is very much the home of gravel. Then, of course, it does have millions of miles of unpaved road, the perfect place for gravel riding. And we simply have not got that infrastructure in UK and Europe, which is why maybe gravel over here across the Atlantic maybe leans more towards maybe gravel mountain than gravel road. Although having said that, I think this behind me, this trail, is an absolute dream. And there's loads more places like that that you can ride over here, such as double tracks, fire roads, unclassified county roads, bridleways, trail centres, tow paths, canal paths. There's so many places to ride a bike like that. However, when the going gets a little bit tough, I think it's time to lean more towards the gravel mountain. After all, you never know. You never know when gravel can become rock, can become mud, can become push, and e-gravel can become the difference between pushing or riding in winter. And this is part of my argument. A gravel bike on a bank in the mud is as much use as an inflatable dartboard. But hey, look, don't get me wrong. Having spent this day reacquainting myself with gravel bikes, I simply love the idea of riding trails like this and fire roads and going into the mountains and riding sheep tracks. I think they're great because it gets you off busy roads. And I think a bike such as that is the perfect tool for the job. But to say that a bike like this makes off-road riding more comfortable, I'm not sure it does. I think a bike like this will make off-road riding more comfortable. And at the same time, you know, is that bike going to be faster than a road bike on the road? No, it's not, but it's certainly going to be faster than that bike. Okay, to wrap up then. So as you can see here in my local trail centre, which is one of dozens in the UK, I'm guessing there's probably over 100 kilometres of surfaced single track for mountain bikers of different skill levels, which is a great thing, and I'm totally not knocking it. All I'm doing is pointing out is that gravel is rife, probably more rife in mountain biking than it is in drop handle gravel riding, because if you think about drop handle gravel riding, it's largely done on roads, fire roads, which are actually made for trucks. They're extraction routes for forestry vehicles. What a trail centre, a gravel trail centre gives you is it gives you predictability, it gives you certainty. You know that if you come to a place like this, you're going to get trails which you can ride in any conditions. So like I said, I'm not knocking it. It's increasingly becoming not my cup of tea, because I guess I was brought up on roots and bogs in West Wales. I still think there's a place for the future mountain bikers to be able to ride on unpredictable surfaces, such as cambers and roots and rocks, because that's where the real skill lies. So when you go to a place like Val di Sole in Italy for a World Cup track, this kind of riding ain't going to give you the experience to conquer a place like that. So having said that, a bike such as this, I'm going to show you one more time, my Neuron OnFly. This bike, I think, is a bike that you can use in a trail centre. It's a bike that you can use on forest roads, and it's a bike you can go exploring in the mountains. And even these days, I'm increasingly seeing in Highland National Parks, there's actually surfacing on walking paths as well. But I think this is the most versatile gravel bike you will ever find. Let us know your thoughts.